Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Have you ever had a friend or family member who constantly criticizes your life choices? They judge your job, your parenting, or your goals, but they always finish it by saying, "Hey, I'm just trying to help." It feels terrible, doesn't it? It drains your energy and makes you doubt yourself. Dealing with unsolicited advice is a major real-life challenge that we all face. Today, we're starting a brand new story about setting firm boundaries and handling toxic advice like a pro. We are going to follow Derek, an aspiring chef trying to launch his own business, and his friend Marcus, who has an opinion about everything Derek does. As you watch their story unfold, you will learn powerful, real-life phrases to handle conflict, stop passive-aggressive comments, and stand your ground politely. Before we jump into Chapter 1, tell me in the comments, how do you handle people who give unwanted advice? Let's get started. Derek loved the sound of a busy kitchen. The rhythmic sound of his chef's knife hitting the wooden cutting board was like music to his ears. After months of planning, he was finally taking the plunge. He had quit his stable corporate job to start his own catering business. Today, he was preparing a signature roasted garlic chicken dish to photograph for his new website. The kitchen smelled wonderful, filled with the aroma of fresh herbs and olive oil. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was Marcus, his childhood friend. Marcus walked into the apartment, barely saying hello before sniffing the air. "Wow, that smells strong," Marcus said, wrinkling his nose. "Are you sure you want to use that much garlic? Most clients hate heavy garlic." Derek forced a smile, trying to keep his voice light. "It is a roasted garlic dish, Marcus. The flavor softens up as it cooks." Marcus picked up Derek's expensive chef's knife, turning it over in his hand. "If you say so," Marcus replied, leaning against the counter. "But honestly, Derek, I am just looking out for you. The restaurant business is brutal. Are you really sure it was smart to leave your office job for this? A steady salary is a guaranteed safety net. This just seems like a massive gamble." Derek stopped chopping. His hands gripped the edge of the cutting board. He felt a familiar knot of tension tightening in his stomach. Marcus always did this. He framed every single piece of criticism as helpful advice. "I appreciate your concern," Derek said slowly, carefully choosing his words. "But I have spent a year writing a solid business plan. I am ready for this change." Marcus held up his hands defensively, shaking his head with a small smirk. "Hey, don't get defensive. I'm just trying to help you avoid a huge mistake. As your best friend, it is my job to tell you the hard truths." Derek picked up his knife again, but the joy of cooking had completely vanished. 2 weeks later, Derek hosted a soft launch in his apartment. A soft launch was a test event for close friends to try his catering menu before the official opening. The dining room was filled with laughter and the sound of clinking glasses. Derek had spent the entire day preparing an elegant three-course meal. His friends loved the food. "Derek, this steak is absolutely incredible," his friend Sarah exclaimed, taking another bite. "You are going to be the most popular caterer in the city." Derek beamed with pride, feeling a huge wave of relief wash over him. All of his hard work was finally paying off. Then Marcus cleared his throat loudly from the end of the table. The laughter in the room died down slightly. "The flavor is decent, Derek," Marcus said, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "But from a business perspective, your portion sizes are way too big. If you serve plates like this at a real event, your profit margins will be completely wiped out." Derek felt his smile freeze on his face. He tried to play it off with a casual laugh. "This is just a special tasting for my friends, Marcus. I want to make sure everyone leaves full."
Marcus shook his head, looking around the table at the other guests. I am just talking business, Derek. I don't want to see you fail. You're also charging way too little for your premium menu items. If you want to stay afloat in this market, you need to listen to someone with actual business experience. The mood in the room instantly turned awkward. Sarah tried to change the subject, but the damage was already done. Derek excused himself and walked back into the kitchen to clear the dessert plates. His hands were shaking slightly as he stood by the sink. Marcus had managed to turn his moment of celebration into a public lecture. Once again, the criticism was disguised as helpful business advice. On Friday morning, Derek went to a local wholesale market to buy ingredients for a small weekend event. He carefully selected organic herbs, fresh cream, and premium cuts of meat. Quality was everything to Derek, and he refused to cut corners on his food. As he checked his shopping list, a familiar voice called out his name. It was Marcus. Marcus walked over, immediately peering into Derek's shopping cart with wide eyes. "Wow, Derek, look at all this premium stuff," Marcus said, crossing his arms. "Are you seriously buying organic tomatoes for a basic catering gig?" Derek took a deep breath, trying to keep his composure. "Yes, Marcus, the client specifically requested a high-end menu." Marcus shook his head, pointing directly at the meat packages in the cart. "This is exactly what I was warning you about. You are spending way too much money. If you keep buying luxury ingredients, you are going to go bankrupt within a year." A shopper passing by turned to look at them, hearing Marcus's loud voice. Derek felt a hot flush of embarrassment creep up his neck. "Marcus, please, I have already calculated the food costs for this event," Derek whispered through clenched teeth. "The client's budget covers these exact ingredients." Marcus chuckled, tapping Derek on the shoulder in a patronizing way. "Hey, calm down. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just giving you a reality check. Most new businesses fail because the owners don't know how to budget properly. I'm only saying this because I care about your future." Derek grabbed the handle of his shopping cart tightly, his knuckles turning white. He didn't want a public scene, but the constant lectures were becoming unbearable. "Thanks for the input," Derek said coldly, pushing his cart past his friend. "But I need to finish my shopping now." As Derek walked away, his heart was pounding with pure frustration. Marcus had crossed a line, turning a simple errand into a public confrontation.
It was 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Derek sat at his kitchen table, working on his financial spreadsheets. He was exhausted after spending 10 hours cooking and delivering food. Suddenly, his smartphone buzzed on the table. Then it buzzed again. And again. He unlocked the screen and opened a group text chat shared by his 5 closest childhood friends. Marcus had just dropped a link into the chat. It was a news article titled, "Why 80% of Food Startups Fail in the First 2 Years." Right below the link, Marcus had typed a message. "Hey Derek, you should read this. It has some great tips on how to avoid total financial ruin. Just trying to help you keep your feet on the ground before things go downhill." Derek stared at the glowing screen, his jaw dropping in disbelief. Another friend in the chat typed, "Wow, that is a bit intense for a Tuesday night, Marcus." But Marcus immediately replied, "Hey, a real friend doesn't sugarcoat the facts. I am just looking out for him." Derek tossed his phone onto the table, refusing to type a response. His stomach twisted into a tight, uncomfortable knot. It was one thing for Marcus to criticize him face to face, but exposing his doubts and negativity to their entire friend group crossed a massive line. Marcus was framing his constant discouragement as important research. Derek realized this pattern was actively draining his energy and hurting his confidence. He could not let this slide anymore.
The unsolicited advice was no longer just annoying, it was starting to feel like a deliberate attempt to see him fail.
The next evening, Derek met his friend Liam at a quiet neighborhood diner. Derek slumped into the vinyl booth looking completely worn out. Liam ordered 2 coffees and looked at Derek with concern. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," Liam said, passing him a sugar packet. "Is the new business giving you a hard time?" Derek sighed deeply, rubbing his tired eyes. "The business is actually going really well," Derek explained, taking a sip of coffee. "But Marcus is driving me absolutely crazy." Derek opened his phone and showed Liam the messages from the group chat the night before. He also unloaded everything else that had happened over the past few weeks. He told Liam about the kitchen critique, the comments at the party, and the grocery store lecture. Liam read the text messages, shaking his head in disbelief. "Man, this is completely uncalled for," Liam said, handing the phone back. "Marcus is totally overstepping the mark here. He is dressing his insults up as helpful advice, but it just looks like pure jealousy to me." Derek leaned back against the booth, feeling a massive sense of relief. Just hearing someone else validate his feelings made the heavy weight on his chest feel lighter. "I just don't get it," Derek muttered, staring into his coffee cup. "We've been friends since we were kids. Why can't he just be happy for me?" Liam looked at him directly, his expression serious. "Because you're taking risks, Derek. You're chasing your dream while he is still stuck in his comfort zone. Your success makes him look at his own life, and he clearly doesn't like what he sees. You need to nip this in the bud before it completely ruins your focus. If you don't set a firm boundary right now, he'll keep dragging you down." Derek nodded slowly, knowing that Liam was entirely right. Venting to a true friend had given him the clarity he desperately needed. It was time to stop running away from the problem and finally face Marcus.
On Thursday morning, Derek decided to take a step back from his busy kitchen. He knew he could not handle another surprise lecture from Marcus without losing his cool. He sat down at his desk with a blank notepad and a pen. If he wanted to save the friendship, he needed to approach this professionally. He could not just wing it. Derek began brainstorming exactly what he wanted to say during their next encounter. He needed to establish a crystal-clear boundary without sounding overly aggressive. He wrote down a few different sentences, crossing out words that sounded too angry. He practiced saying the phrases out loud to the empty room, adjusting his tone. "Marcus, I value our history, but I need you to respect my professional choices," he rehearsed. "I am no longer accepting unsolicited advice regarding my business operations." The words felt formal and slightly uncomfortable on his tongue, but Derek knew that casual hints were simply not cutting it anymore. He needed robust language that left absolutely no room for misinterpretation. He rehearsed how to handle the inevitable defensive reaction from Marcus. If Marcus claimed he was just trying to help, Derek would not engage in a debate. He would simply restate the boundary and move the conversation forward. By the afternoon, Derek felt a newfound sense of confidence taking root. Preparing his talking points in advance gave him a feeling of control over the situation. He was no longer dreading the conversation. He was ready to lay his cards on the table. On Friday afternoon, Derek decided it was time to face the issue head-on. He sent Marcus a brief text message inviting him to a quiet coffee shop downtown. Marcus arrived 10 minutes late, sliding into the chair opposite Derek with his usual confident smirk. "Hey man, glad you called," Marcus said, flagging down the barista. "I actually found another great article about small business tax mistakes you should look at."
Derek felt his chest tighten, but he took a slow, deep breath to steady himself. He remembered his notes and stayed completely focused on his plan. "Actually, Marcus, I didn't invite you here to talk about business tips," Derek said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "I asked you here because we need to talk about our friendship." Marcus blinked, his smirk fading slightly as he leaned back in his chair. "Our friendship? What do you mean?" Derek locked eyes with Marcus, refusing to look away or soften his delivery. "Over the last few weeks, you have constantly criticized my career and my parenting choices," Derek stated clearly. "From the comments about my kitchen to the link you dropped in the group chat, it has become a constant stream of negativity." Marcus opened his mouth to interrupt, but Derek held up a firm hand to stop him. "Let me finish, please," Derek insisted, his voice remaining level. "I know you always say you are just trying to help, but the reality is that your comments are undermining my confidence. Moving forward, I need you to respect my boundaries. I am happy to talk to you about sports, movies, or our childhood, but my business choices are completely off limits. If you cannot respect that, I will have to take some space away from our friendship." The air between them instantly turned incredibly tense. Derek sat back, his heart pounding against his ribs, waiting for the storm to hit. He had laid his cards on the table, and now it was Marcus's turn to respond. Marcus stared at Derek for a few seconds, his face turning a deep shade of red. Then he let out a loud, mocking scoff and threw his hands up in the air. "Are you serious right now, Derek?" Marcus asked, his voice dripping with defensive anger. "You are seriously threatening our entire friendship over a few helpful texts? Wow, I guess you have just become way too sensitive to handle the real world." Derek felt a strong urge to snap back, but he forced himself to stay completely grounded. He remembered his rehearsal and refused to let Marcus pull him into a shouting match. Marcus leaned across the table, pointing a finger directly at Derek's chest. "I am your best friend, Derek. A true friend tells you the brutal truths, not just what you want to hear. If you are going to get this upset every time someone tries to protect you from failing, your business is doomed anyway. I was only looking out for you, but fine, be ungrateful." Marcus was trying to turn the tables, twisting the situation to make Derek look like the bad guy. It was a classic guilt trip, but Derek refused to back down or apologize for speaking up. "I am not being sensitive, Marcus, and I am not ungrateful," Derek replied, his voice chillingly calm. "I am simply setting a boundary for my own mental peace and my professional focus. You don't have to agree with my choices, but you do have to respect my decision to stop discussing them with you." Marcus stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back a few inches. "Whatever, man. If you can't take constructive criticism, that is your problem," Marcus snapped, grabbing his jacket. "Good luck running your little business without anyone looking out for you." Marcus turned around and stormed out of the coffee shop, slamming the door behind him. Derek sat alone at the table, exhaling a long, shaky breath that he felt like he had been holding for weeks. It had been an incredibly painful and intense confrontation, but as Marcus walked away down the street, Derek realized something amazing. The heavy knot of anxiety in his stomach was completely gone.
3 weeks passed, and Derek did not hear a single word from Marcus. Marcus had completely cut him off, giving him the absolute silent treatment. He didn't send any texts, and he remained completely quiet in the group chat. Initially, the silence felt incredibly uncomfortable and heavy for Derek. It was hard losing the daily connection with someone he had known since childhood. But as the days turned into weeks, Derek noticed a dramatic shift in his environment. Without the constant stream of negative comments and unsolicited advice, his mind felt entirely clear. The heavy cloud of self-doubt that had been hanging over his head completely vanished. He used this newfound peaceful energy to throw himself completely into his work. He spent hours refining his presentation skills, perfecting his recipes, and expanding his marketing efforts. His hard work paid off rapidly. By the end of the month, Derek landed his first major corporate catering contract for a high-profile technology firm. It was a massive event with over 200 guests attending. Derek and his small hired team worked tirelessly, serving an exquisite three-course meal without a single mistake. The corporate event was an absolute resounding success. At the end of the evening, the company CEO personally thanked Derek, praising the exceptional quality of the food. As Derek drove his delivery van home that night, looking at the large payment check on his passenger seat, he smiled deeply. He had proven to himself that his business model was robust and profitable. The cooling-off period with Marcus had been painful, but it had provided the exact space Derek needed to thrive. He had survived the storm, and his catering business was officially taking off. 2 months after the big corporate event, Derek was busier than ever. His catering business was thriving, and he had finally found a comfortable, productive rhythm. One afternoon, while organizing his inventory, his phone lit up with a notification. It was a text message from Marcus. "Hey man, saw the photos from your tech company event on social media. Looks like it was a huge success. Congrats." Derek stared at the screen, feeling a wave of relief that the icy silent treatment was finally over. He typed back a polite reply, thanking Marcus for the message. A few days later, they agreed to meet up at a local park to grab a casual lunch. As they walked along the path with their sandwiches, the atmosphere was slightly awkward but mostly peaceful. They talked about local sports, mutual friends, and old high school memories. It felt good to connect again without the heavy tension of their last meeting. Suddenly, Marcus gestured toward a new food truck parked near the entrance of the park. "You know, Derek, you should really look into getting a food truck for your business," Marcus started, his tone shifting into that familiar, preachy rhythm. "Catering is fine, but a truck would give you a massive marketing advantage. If you want my advice, you need to—" Marcus stopped mid-sentence, catching himself as he looked over at Derek. Derek didn't get angry, and he didn't raise his voice. He simply held up a gentle, reminding hand. Marcus cleared his throat, rubbing the back of his neck, his face turning slightly pink. "Right, sorry," Marcus muttered, looking away with a small sheepish smile. "Old habits die hard, I guess. Forget I said anything." Derek smiled warmly, clapping his friend on the shoulder as they started walking again. "Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate that," Derek said sincerely. The relationship wasn't perfectly fixed, and it would take time to rebuild total trust. But the boundary had been tested, and this time it held firm. Derek had successfully protected his business and saved a lifelong friendship. He had finally mastered the art of drawing the line.
And that is how Derek stood his ground, protected his dream, and saved his friendship by setting a firm boundary. It wasn't easy, but drawing the line was the best thing he ever did for his mental peace and his business. Today, we learned some incredible real-life English expressions, like taking the plunge, cutting corners, and nipping it in the bud. Remember, using these phrases in real-life conversations will make your English sound natural, fluent, and confident. You can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. Now, I want to hear from you. What was your favorite English phrase from Derek's story? And how would you handle a friend who gives constant unwanted advice? Drop your answers in the comments right now. I read and reply to every single one. If you loved this story and want to keep learning English through real-life challenges, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you so much for watching, practicing, and growing with me today. Keep practicing, stay confident, and see you in the next story. Goodbye.